Sculpting Murders by CJ Robertson. Chapter 1. London's East End was glum. Cobblestone roadways were coated with murky water, moss, and trash. The buildings looked old and sad. The bricks were breaking apart and the motor was crumbling away. Pollution clouds filled the air. The year was 1888. A young man was on his way to the pub to meet a colleague and close friend of his located in the Whitechapel district. Such a sad place, he thought to himself. Why do I live here? As the man entered the double doors of the pub, he looked around, seeking a familiar face. Ah, he had found it. Esper! He roared as he walked across the open pub floor, dodging tables, chairs, and people. He took a seat next to a young man sitting at the far end of the bar. Jack! Esper wailed back. How are you, mate? What is this great news you wanted to talk about? Esper's eyes lit up like a candle. Whenever Jack wanted to meet, Esper knew it was going to be worth it. If they met anywhere else, say Jack's house, it was never too exciting. The pub door swung open again and everyone looked to see who it was. An older woman had entered. She wasn't too old, but her brown hair had started turning gray. Her complexion, the reason everyone adored her, was a rich dark color. Mary Ann Nicholas, every man in the room thought. This was clear by the look on every man's face. Marian was a popular woman in the Whitechapel district. Jack didn't give the girl a second glance, but Esper stared and dreamed until Jack shoved his lager at him. Esper! Jack shouted, do you want to hear or not? Esper's eyes followed Marianne until she took a seat near the men in the booth at the backside of the bar. Wow, was the expression on Esper's face. What man would divorce such a lady? Jack grunted and took a chug of his lager. He waited on Esper to regain consciousness to their conversation. Esper turned back to Jack. So, what is it? Jack raised a brow. Right to it then, eh? That was Esper, though, straight to the point, but on his terms. A new sculpting material, he beamed, chest puffed a tad. Esper looked unamused. And? He scoffed. Jack grumbled, looking as annoyed as ever. It's like flesh, Esper, human flesh. He trailed off, hoping his friend would see the excitement in this discovery. Esper's eyes grew wide. His words didn't seem to come out at a natural pace, even though his mouth was wide open. We can make bodies! Esper shouted. Behind him, Jack noticed Marianne's head snap up and stare at Esper's back. But Esper's excitement brought Jack's attention back to the conversation, his mouth gaping, pupils enormous, and still staring at Jack. Yes, Esper, we could. Any type of body you wanted, we could make it. Now, I'm not perfect yet, but I'll get there. Esper shook his head. No mind there, Jack. It's a play about murder and mutilation. These bodies will end up dismantled anyway. What's the matter with having a head start, eh? Jack nodded, thinking on this. Esper was right. No need for them to be perfect. Esper threw up his hand, ordering 2 more drinks from the bartender. So, how did you come about this new material? Esper asked as he slid a new glass full of foamy beer to his friend. Jack slid the empty glass away from him toward the barmaid, who happened to be walking by. Well, I was working with plaster and I spilled some raisin powder into it. Smelled ghastly, but the mixture it made was incredible. I made some bones out of the clay, layered this new material, and it looked great. Jack was proud of himself. Few sculptors were able to create new materials. They also did not have the backbone to try. Who knew what would blow up and what wouldn't? But it's not like Jack created this on purpose either. He took a long gulp of his beer and looked around the pub. Well then, that's quite interesting. Good thing it didn't grow a mouth and teeth and eat you, right? Esper responded as he laughed aloud. He always had a great sense of humor and made the best out of every situation. For this next play, I want to do something with children. Something scary, like maybe make them come out of a field and kill adults. Esper turned around on his stool as he finished his sentence and stared at Mary. Not in a creepy way, but he did have puppy eyes and was smiling at her. Jack shook his head and rolled his eyes, turning back to his drink. Much to his surprise, his drink was not the only thing waiting for him. Hey, darling, the barmaid shouted at him. Jack jumped and almost fell out of his stool. He saw Esper turn and look out of the corner of his eye, but then he turned back to ogle Mary. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. Hello, Jill, Jack said, a little frustration in his voice. How are you? Some would say this wasn't Jack asking Jill anything. He was just being polite. His voice was rash and cold. "I'm doing well as one can do, living here," she responded. It was true. The little town in London was not a dazzling place. It did not have the best jobs or the best scenery. The people were nice, though. "Good," Jack said. He leaned over and shoved Esper's arm, sloshing Esper's beer into his lap. Esper laughed and shook his head. "No harm, we'll just order more." And so they did. The two friends partied late into the night, celebrating their accomplishments and friendship. It was late. Jack was stumbling his way down Buck's Row. At least he hoped it was Buck's Row. He had to keep hold of the building for support, his fingers sliding across uneven bricks. Between the celebration with Esper and the lack of sleep due to experimenting, he was ready for sleep. He was also quite drunk. Quite drunk. He needed to sit. And so he did. After a moment on the cold, wet ground, he felt a presence standing over him. There were rarely any streetlights down Buck's Row, so he didn't see a shadow. He felt it. He also thought he heard footsteps, which stopped right next to him. A gloved, outstretched hand was thrust in front of him. He blinked at the hand, trying to focus. Looking up, he saw a darkened figure, a hooded figure. He shrugged and grabbed the hand, which in turn pulled him to his feet. "Come on!" A female voice spoke to him as she helped him pull his arm over her shoulders. It was Marianne. Did she follow me? Jack leaned into the woman's body. "Jesus, Jack, could you help me a little?" She shifted his weight as much as she could, but she was only 5 feet tall. Jack was 6. "Sorry, ma'am," he slurred his words. They walked a little ways down the street to a bench and Marianne dropped Jack into it. "Hey, this looks like my Tudor." Jack was referring to his home. It was in the Tudor style, but very small. All the houses on his street were small with fenced-off gardens out front and a side alleyway between each house. Most of these alleyways went nowhere except to a small brick wall, but some went on through other streets. "Yes, because this is your Tudor, Jack," Marianne said, out of breath. "Can we talk?" she asked as she sat down next to him. She left her hood on. Nights were starting to get very chilly. It was unwise to be outside at night without any cover. "Of course, dear." Jack turned to face her, hunched over a tad. Marianne looked at him. Desperation was in her eyes, a pleading look, almost as if she was begging through her expression. "I need to ask a dire favor of you." Jack nodded to her. "And what might this favor be?" he responded. He stared at Marianne, and then, like a candle near an open window, everything went dark. "Jack? Jack, damn it, Jack, wake the hell up, we need to talk." She shook him back and forth. He must have fallen asleep. Well, blacked out was the more proper term. Either way, Mary had to bring him back to consciousness. Ew, drool. He wiped his cheek and then Marianne's sleeve. "Sorry about that. Had a bit too much to drink with Esper tonight." He shook his head as if to clear the drunken stupor he was falling into. "You said something, a favor. What was it, my dear? I promise I'll listen this time." He stared Marianne straight into the eyes. There was that look again, pleading, begging. Marianne sighed, her shoulders rising and falling with each breath. "I need you to kill me." Jack looked confused and startled. His mouth opened and then closed. He wanted to speak, but where to begin? "What in the bloody hell makes you think I would want to do something like that?" His voice was loud and echoed off the walls in the empty street. He looked around with care. "Are you mad, woman? What kind of man do you think I am? I could never. He shook his head and looked at her, disgusted. She waved her hands back and forth in front of him, trying to silence his incomplete sentences. No. Not actually kill me," she said. "I overheard you and Esper." Jack nodded. "I know." He remembered seeing her snap to attention during their conversation. She had clung to every word they spoke after that. She was not good at hiding the fact that she was eavesdropping. "Well, I was hoping you could make a replica of me. With this new material you've created, the one like human flesh." Her tone was anxious and hushed. Why would this lovely woman want to fake her own death? Sure, people believed she was a prostitute, but what woman in this town wasn't? She was also divorced with 5 children, but again, that was not enough to vanish, was it? Was it? He mulled this one over. He had to know why, otherwise he couldn't even consider it. Why? He looked at his hands. He grasped his pinky finger and his thumb from his right hand. He acted as if he were twisting a ring on his finger, but there was nothing there. Marianne scoffed. Why? What do you mean, why? I've been branded a whore, and William is no longer paying my pence. No one will hire me, all because he saw me leave the house with a man. Now he has spread word like butter that I'm nothing more than a lowly bedwoman. She was angry. Jack could see it. That didn't matter to him, though. Anger was not his bother. Okay. Just calm down a bit. No need to wake the neighbors. He made a motion towards the floor, palms down. He sighed. This conversation was full of sighs. He stayed quiet, thinking of what Marianne had asked him to do and her reasoning. She had some good points, but he wasn't sure if he could do this mentally. Look, I want to start over in a new place where no one knows me. If everyone here thinks I'm dead, they won't come looking. If everyone thinks I'm dead, I'll be much happier. She was much quieter now. Jack knew what she meant when she said that William had made things a mess for her. Any woman branded a prostitute would never be able to receive work other than in a brothel or on the streets. Marianne wanted neither. And how do you propose we do this? He asked with a bit of sarcasm in his voice. This was never going to work. For one, his sculpting of bodies was new. 2, he had no idea how to fake a murder. And 3, well, did he need a third? Marianne explained. All through the night, they talked it over. She explained that she had researched how and why murders happen. She must have read a lot of old newspapers in the library and a few short stories by some unknown authors. After a while, she helped him inside and then she left. Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard and would like to hear more, please click the like and subscribe button. Links to buy the book are down in the description, as are the links to my Twitter, Facebook, and Patreon. My audio reading book promotions are free for any published writers, so if you have a book you want me to read the first chapter from, just shoot me an email with your first chapter, book cover, links to purchase your book, and a brief description to ebonyclock@yahoo.com. See you next time on Ebony Clock Promotions.